Urban explorers are drawn to the eerie allure of places abandoned and left behind by time. For those brave enough, exploring these forgotten locations is both thrilling and terrifying. From crumbling asylums that still carry the weight of their dark histories to strange, unsettling discoveries hidden within deserted spaces, here are 15 of the creepiest things ever found by urban explorers. Number 15. Great White Shark. An urban explorer named Luke McPherson discovered a genuinely unusual sight at an abandoned wildlife park outside Melbourne, Australia, in early 2019. Luke had no clue that while exploring the park's past, he would come face to face with something horrific. Luke's attention was taken to a storage closet as he wandered around the vacant park when he got sight of a jaw-dropping sight. A 16-foot-long, 2-ton great white shark hung in a tank of formaldehyde. Rosie, the giant shark, was strangely preserved by the chemicals, surrounded by mounds of rubbish and dusty boxes. Luke discovered that Rosie died tragically over 2 decades ago when she became entangled in a fishing net by accident. She had been maintained and shown in the tank within the wildlife park ever since in an effort to honor the gorgeous creature. When the park closed its doors over a decade ago, the proprietors took an unusual decision. They left Rosie behind. The once ferocious predator had become a forgotten relic, abandoned amid the lonely limits of the park. The horrific finding of Luke quickly gained widespread notice and popular curiosity. Fortunately, the attention drawn to Rosie's suffering grabbed the notice of a nearby tourist attraction named Crystal World, who took it upon themselves to save the preserved shark from further degradation. Rosie was said to be transferred to Melbourne after being repaired, where her preserved presence will surely attract and scare the crowds. Number 14. Creepy mannequins. Theme parks are often associated with fun and laughter, but an abandoned amusement park in Lancashire, England, now has a drastically different ambience than it had previously. Andre Gavia, a renowned urban explorer, traveled inside this abandoned spot only to be met by a terrifying army of horrific mannequins that sent shivers down his spine. Life-sized mannequins with frightening looks and rotting bodies greeted Andre as he walked the deserted park. Their once joyous features had been warped into ugly, rotting masks, producing an eerie atmosphere that chilled the air around them. To say the least, the sight of these figures was disconcerting. Some of the mannequins were dressed in unsettling clothes, now ragged and faded after years of disuse, which added to the eerie atmosphere. These ghostly shapes were spread over the ghost train ride's remains, their dead glances following Andre's every move as he investigated the abandoned grounds. The frightening mannequins date back to the 1960s when the amusement park was at its peak. Many of them were mechanical marvels of their era, built to move and delight park visitors. However, decades after the park's demise, the electronics that once brought these figurines to life have gone dormant, leaving them frozen in time. As Andre continued his investigation, he discovered that the mannequins' cables, which had previously been neatly contained within their artificial bodies, now snaked out onto the ground, a tangled mass of forgotten technology. In the face of such a terrifying sight, Andre correctly chose prudence and kept a safe distance from the unsettling mannequins. Once a haven of joy and excitement, the abandoned amusement park has devolved into a gloomy realm of rotting figures and eerie quiet. Number 13. House in the Rock. Deep in the English Midlands lies a remarkable historical mystery. Lost homes that were originally caverns turned into dwellings by ancient occupants. These mysterious dwellings are said to date back hundreds of years and are now concealed behind a beautiful canopy of flora. During his travels in 1654, John Evelyn noted in his diary his experience with a varied group of people living in rocks and caverns, probably alluding to these particular houses. John Bramwell, one of the last known occupants, passed away peacefully in the 1900s, according to his great-granddaughter Angie's 1979 stories. John had spent the last decade of his life there alone, surrounded by the quiet of nature on Rock Hill. The Rock House also functioned as his family's home since he married there in 1836, and all 10 of his children were born there. The mystery surrounding these ancient cave houses piqued the interest of urban explorer Adam Mark, who went inside one of them. Inside, he found a simple main living area with seats and a fireplace, followed by a little bedroom behind it. These houses provided a look into the basic and unpretentious life of their previous occupants. The pressing question on everyone's mind was regarding the ownership and the payment of rent or mortgages for these unique residences. The answer lay with a person named William Hall, who once owned all the land, and it was to him that John Bramwell paid his rent. Although William Hall sold the land in 1910, he did so under the condition that these cave homes would be preserved as a tribute to the past, safeguarding the memory of an age gone by. Number 12. Swinging Chains. An intrepid adventurer ventured forward in a long abandoned mine amid the bleak Arizona environment. An odd discomfort grew over him with each step farther down the dark, winding tube. His pain was heightened by the moisture and stillness as he descended farther into the mine. An unusual sensation seized him as if some invisible power was at work. He came to a halt when he noticed a huge metal chain swaying. Curiously, he looked around only to discover that no other chains were performing this strange dance. The explorer was perplexed by the chain's odd motions as he recorded the spooky picture on his camera. The film provided no logical explanation for the event, which left him perplexed and interested. His thoughts were racing with questions, but before he could completely understand the situation, the chain was joined by another, swinging in time with the first. An insatiable curiosity drove the explorer back to the abandoned mine a year later, determined to reach the spot where he had previously turned back. Surprisingly, he had no recollection of his prior visit. It was as if the recording had gone from his memory, leaving him with a perplexing sense of forgetfulness. When he arrived at the same strange location, he saw a mist gathering, similar to how the chain swung in the footage from his previous mission. Strange, echoed noises of water droplets falling rippled down the tunnel, yet there was no apparent source of water. Unfazed, the adventurer plunged deeper, his camera catching every moment. However, when he reached deep inside the mine, he experienced an unexpected occurrence. The dark passages rang with machinery and radio-like noises. He was perplexed and a little worried, since he couldn't come up with a reasonable explanation for these mysterious noises. A strange horror grabbed him, and he resolved to flee the mine. Now it's time for today's topic. Urban explorers in California stumbled upon a discovery that looked straight out of a nightmare. While exploring an abandoned building on the outskirts of the state, they pushed their way into a large, decaying facility and found something that froze them in their tracks. A massive shark floating in a murky indoor pool. The sight of its lifeless body, with jaws slightly open and teeth still intact, was enough to terrify even the most seasoned explorers. The pool was in poor condition, the water tinted green and surrounded by rusted railings and peeling walls. At first glance, it looked like the remains of a real shark somehow preserved in the forgotten building. The explorers quickly captured photos and video, which spread rapidly across social media, igniting rumors that a genuine giant predator had been hidden away for years. Speculation ran wild, with some suggesting it was linked to a secret research project or a private aquarium. However, after experts reviewed the footage, it was finally confirmed to be a movie prop, an incredibly realistic replica once used in a production, later abandoned when the facility shut down. Even so, the eerie image of a giant shark in a dirty pool remains one of the most unsettling urban exploration finds in recent memory. Number 11. Door in a mountain. Our next courageous explorer comes from the renowned Red Media channel as he continues on his journey. A small board appears, functioning as a makeshift pathway leading to a mysterious access point, the door in the mountain. Urban explorers like him are inspired by the challenge that lies ahead despite the warning signs warning of possible perils. This ice cave, known as the shop flock or sheep hole in English, is lovingly known as the door in the mountain because it seems as if the mountain itself conceals a secret entrance beneath. It has historical value, since in 1822 General Henry Dufour climbed into this cave. A more recent chapter in its history, however, illustrates the participation of the Swiss army. Prior to the turbulence of World War II, in order to strengthen its defenses, the Swiss army built a bunker within the shop flock, fortifying it with concrete walls, iron doors, and firing holes. While the bunker was never used, it serves as a concrete reminder of Switzerland's unflinching resolution to protect its sovereignty. Switzerland declared neutrality during World War II, and this was no accident. The country's remarkable military preparation played a crucial role in deterring possible invaders. The Swiss people's willingness to defend their homeland demonstrates their kind character, which coexists with a steadfast commitment to protecting their country and its people. Surprisingly, the concealed bunker within the shop flock is still accessible to daring hikers who choose to enter at their own risk. This fascinating cavern, with its echoes of history and mysteries hidden inside, welcomes anyone brave enough to brave its chilly corridors. Number 10. UFO Village in Taiwan. An intriguing place known as the UFO Village exists, but contrary to its name, it is not filled with actual unidentified flying objects. Yet an aura of profound mystery surrounds this peculiar location, shrouding it in enigma and fascination. Surprisingly, despite its allure, there seems to be a scarcity of publicly accessible information about its origin and the exact circumstances of its construction. According to Atlas Obscura, the UFO Village's history stretches back to the 1970s when this pod-like town appeared out of nowhere. However, the community appears to have entered a condition of stasis since then, with little happening within its borders. The structures that dot this unusual city are separated into two unique shapes: square-shaped units known as Venutros and circular-shaped units intriguingly known as future roses. The causes for the demise of this unusual town have sparked much speculation. Some speculate that a nearby property development sprouted up during the same period, leaving the UFO village without people. Another idea holds that the cost of constructing and maintaining the odd pod-like residences skyrocketed, rendering the concept financially impossible. A courageous urban explorer ventures inside the mysterious UFO village. When she arrives, she is met with a terrifying sight. The pods are decrepit and run down, conjuring an apocalyptic atmosphere. Time has taken its toll on the once futuristic structures, which now resemble relics from a bygone period. Amidst the spooky atmosphere, a slew of rumors swirls throughout the settlement, adding to its mystique. There are whispered stories of strange accidents and terrifying descriptions of suicides that have occurred within its walls. The entire aura of the UFO village appears to attract tales of the unknown, enveloping this abandoned community in a web of mystery. Number 9. Unfinished toys. A neglected old factory filled with rows upon rows of unmade toys, a melancholy tribute to a stalled heritage of invention and industry, was discovered deep within the industrial zone by urban explorers. The factory, which had once been a busy hive of hopes and invention, now stood as a ghostly relic of time, locked in its condition of halted production. When the explorers entered the plant, they were met with a bizarre scene that seemed to defy the passage of time. Countless workstations dotted the wide length of the structure, each strewn with molds, supplies, and half-finished prototypes. The air smelled faintly of plastic and paint. Unfinished toys were frozen at various stages of manufacturing, longing for the touch of talented hands to bring them to life. Doll heads, limbs, and bodies lie strewn about, each awaiting assembly to complete its function and enchant the hearts of youngsters. Stacks of fabric and filling hinted at the fanciful characters that may have graced children's rooms if fate hadn't interfered. The abandoned factory bore evidence of its previous creators' lost dreams, whose ambitions were forever connected to the unmade toys that now lay quiet and undisturbed. Each doll and toy seemed to have the ability to spark delight and amazement in the eyes of children, but their fate was permanently linked to the end of manufacturing. Time remained still in this haunted setting, preserving the heritage of a bygone period where creativity thrived and aspirations were realized. The unfinished toys acted as painful reminders of the human spirit's insatiable drive to create and offer enjoyment to others. Number 8. Abandoned veterinary school. Urban explorers are fully aware of the dangers they face when wandering into abandoned areas, including the threat of being arrested, injured, or encountering something genuinely terrible. This terrifying scenario became a reality for Stefan Bernert during his tour of an abandoned veterinary school in Derelict, Belgium, culminating in a nightmare-inducing discovery. The veterinary school closed its doors towards the end of the 20th century and has been dormant ever since. Stefan and his fellow explorers approached the abandoned building, drawn by the appeal of crumbling classrooms, with the purpose of photographing its creepy interiors. A thick, sickening odor permeated the air as they passed through the lonely corridors. It was the unmistakable aroma of formaldehyde. Stefan and the others went down to the veterinary school's basement, determined to find the cause of the stink. What awaited them in the dimly illuminated depths defied their wildest fears. Containers, some dating back over a century, were strewn throughout the basement, each containing the preserved carcasses of animals. Hundreds of horrific body parts and organs floated ominously in formaldehyde, creating a ghastly exhibition of preserved flora and wildlife. This frightening assemblage included dogs, cats, rabbits, and other species. Stefan couldn't stop himself from photographing the terrifying scene, immortalizing the frightening photographs. The heinous collection of preserved animal parts created a revolting odor that would stick in his mind for the rest of his life. While it was clear that these specimens had formerly been used for research, the odd sight couldn't help but conjure up images of a mad scientist's secret laboratory. The bizarre ambience conjured up visions of a sick monster lurking in the shadows, eager to harvest organs for his morbid experiments. Number 7. Halloween. Jake, an adventurous urban explorer, recently entertained his YouTube audience with a gripping video in which he wandered into a beautiful but abandoned farmhouse. This lovely red brick mansion, nestled just off a bustling highway in East Cheshire in the picturesque market town of Altrincham in Greater Manchester, England, was once a sanctuary of elegance and peace. However, it is now abandoned, surrounded by a magnificent piece of land with the heavy shadows of gigantic trees looming over its chimney. When left to its own devices, the farmhouse succumbs to the merciless march of time. Jake began his exploration by wandering about the overgrown yard, where he came across a sad, forgotten wheelchair, seemingly abandoned like the home itself. As he went further, he discovered a series of dilapidated outbuildings, each with its own story of neglect and ruin. An ancient, lidless, and seemingly neglected casket lay haphazardly in the grass in one of these sheds. Jake approached the garage, his curiosity awakened, where an ancient, dusty blue automobile remained as a remnant of the past, screaming for delicate care and attention. The most unusual find, though, awaited him within one of the outbuildings. He came across a strange collection that appeared to be Halloween or horror film props. The strange collection of artifacts made him wonder about the stories behind their existence in this abandoned home. As Jake continued his quest, each room he visited contained a treasure trove of strange and rotting objects. A frightening horned animal skull and a fake head on a table, among other intriguing artifacts, contributed to the eerie mood. The interior of the home, too, exhibited the symptoms of neglect, with most rooms being empty. He entered the living room to find a gorgeous fireplace from another age, surrounded by bare walls and a single exquisite chandelier. The upstairs apartments were devoid of any evidence of life or occupation, mirroring the nothingness below. Number 6. Abandoned plane. A strange and fascinating scene awaits interested passersby just outside the city of Cartersville in the state of Georgia. An abandoned Grumman G-159 Gulfstream jet plane lays along a gravel road across a lovely meadow and into a tiny forest area, quietly succumbing to the ravages of time. This twin turboprop airplane has been allowed to weather the elements for almost 15 years after being retired, dismantled, and unceremoniously abandoned beside a river in the woods by the local Phoenix Air. The plane, hidden among the dense foliage, remains a fascinating and surprising sight, grabbing the attention of anybody who stumbles upon it. The abandoned Gulfstream plane has had its fair share of visitors over the years, from curious photographers and daring hikers to local graffiti artists who have turned its weathered skin into a colorful canvas. Unfortunately, time and the efforts of numerous salvagers took their toll on the airplane. Wings, tail, wiring, and instrument panels have been removed, leaving the fuselage and leather seats as melancholy memories of its previous magnificence. There was conjecture that this abandoned jet was the Phoenix Air default Falcon 20, which crashed at Cartersville Airport in 1989 during a ferry trip to Dana Lee Airport. However, this notion was eventually disproven, leaving the exact identity and history of the deserted jet unknown. The plane used to be on city-owned land in Cartersville, but its presence has gradually but steadily dwindled over the years. It was gradually disassembled and carried away by time and maybe the hands of curious travelers. The abandoned Gulfstream plane is said to have vanished completely by late 2021, leaving only recollections of its once dazzling presence. Number 5. Tombstone. The urban explorers of the Exploring with Fighters YouTube channel discovered a shocking surprise in an abandoned property near Oxford, England, that had belonged to famed music artist David Gilmour of Pink Floyd in its heyday. The huge 16th-century manor home with 11 beds was a symbol of grandeur. The estate, however, fell into disrepair after changing owners several times, shrouding it in a gloomy aura. The film takes viewers on a tour of the mansion's abandoned chambers, revealing its previous splendor. The explorers photographed snippets of the mansion's history, from a billiards room to an intricately adorned child's bedroom, now allowed to degrade in desolation. As they dug deeper into the home, the explorers came into something considerably more terrifying in the basement. What looked to be the tombstone of a 7-year-old kid named Little Jack who passed away was leaning ominously against a wall. Despite thorough investigation, no definitive reason for the grave's presence has been discovered. However, some assume that it was created in remembrance of a cherished family pet from decades ago. Whatever the cause, discovering such a terrible scene in the basement of an abandoned house was unquestionably spooky and unnerving. Even the mansion's recent past was marred by tragedy. Jill Sinclair, the manor's owner around the turn of the century, suffered catastrophic brain damage when her son shot her with an air weapon on the grounds. She passed away as a result of her injuries, leaving behind a heartbreaking legacy. Following the traumatic tragedy, the house was sold in 2007, and it has been in a condition of disrepair ever since, haunted by its tragic past. The urban explorers must have felt relieved to discover the mansion's frightening past once they had safely exited the site. Number 4. Soviet Space Shuttle. When Neil Armstrong made his historic stride on the lunar surface, it signified a momentous day for all of mankind, but especially for the United States, which had triumphed over the Soviet Union in the heated space race. Both countries had aggressively battled to be the first to reach the moon and establish their dominance in space research. After realizing its failure, the Soviet Union abandoned much of its space program. Today, an abandoned Soviet space shuttle lies in a hangar in Kazakhstan, which was previously a part of the Soviet Union. Curiosity drove the Urban Explorer channel to investigate the present condition of this abandoned shuttle. To reach the shuttle, a risky nighttime expedition was necessary, maneuvering with extreme caution to avoid unwanted notice. Undaunted, they arrived at their destination and began their mission. They eventually saw the long-forgotten Soviet spacecraft after sneaking through a window. The shuttle bore traces of time on the outside, appearing aged and worn. When they went inside, they were surprised to see that the interior was practically undamaged and clean. The shuttle, built to resist the extreme conditions of spaceflight, had survived 3 decades inside the Kazakh hangar. The Soviet space shuttle, known as the Buran, flew for the first time in November 1988, a noteworthy accomplishment during a time of global turmoil. However, the next year saw major developments as the Berlin Wall collapsed and the Soviet Union disintegrated, resulting in Kazakhstan's newfound freedom. The destiny of the Buran became unknown in the middle of these changing events, with no clear instruction on how to manage this technical marvel. Kazakhstan's newly autonomous government simply abandoned and forgot the shuttle. Number 3. Tanks. Urban explorers discovered a derelict military camp in the middle of a lonely country, its formerly important grounds now cluttered with abandoned tanks, remnants of a bygone period of battle. The eerie calm that engulfed the facility was a disturbing reminder of the past's conflicts and tensions, where the ghosts of wars and sacrifices still remained. As the explorers moved through the decaying grounds, they came across rows of rusted tanks, their metal hulls standing out against the bleak and dreary environment. The explorers paused at one tank whose hatch was left ajar, peering inside to find the interior stripped bare, though faint traces of faded insignias still clung to the walls. Another vehicle bore scorch marks across its frame, evidence of the battles that once raged here. The smell of rust and earth mixed with the silence, amplifying the sense that this place was frozen in time. Among the weeds and cracked concrete, a tattered flagpole leaned heavily, its rope still swaying faintly in the wind as if saluting ghosts long gone. One of the explorers whispered that the site felt more like a battlefield memorial than an abandoned camp. The deeper they went, the more they uncovered forgotten remnants, discarded helmets, corroded shell casings, and shattered glass from watchtowers that once stood tall. These discoveries painted a vivid picture of human endurance and loss, giving the place a strange mixture of desolation and dignity. These once mighty combat vehicles, now rusted and surrounded by overgrown flora, served as a melancholy reminder of wars waged and lives permanently altered by the horrors of war. The quiet of the military post appeared to bear the weight of history, encapsulating memories of lost battles and forgotten sacrifices. The explorers couldn't help but think about the human experiences locked within these battle remains as they explored the abandoned tanks. Each tank had a tale to tell, a tribute to the force they once possessed, now juxtaposed against the peace and beauty of their new surroundings. These abandoned war engines, once vital in molding nations' fates and determining battle results, now stood as artifacts of history that should never be forgotten. As they stood among the rusty tanks, the explorers felt a mixture of awe and reverence, realizing the enormous influence these devices had on history and mankind. Number 2. Too many birds. During one of their video adventures, the Hell on Earth YouTube channel's urban explorers came across something genuinely horrifying. Acting on a tip about an abandoned facility in England that was rumored to have formerly belonged to the Ministry of Defense, the group launched an inquiry. Not afraid of the warnings that awaited them, they were met by an ominous statement scribbled on the wall as they entered the derelict institution, hardly a pleasant greeting. Nonetheless, their drive remained unwavering as they pushed on, traversing the complex coated in layers of abandoned pigeon droppings. Their bravery was put to the test again when they came upon another foreboding inscription, this time warning them not to go upstairs. They courageously ascended to investigate the higher stories, curiosity overwhelming caution. As they progressed further inside the barren structure, they were met with an unsettling sight, an increasing number of deceased pigeons, some of which were decapitated. But it was the ominous statement on one of the walls that sent shivers down their spines. Too many birds. Someone with a malicious motive appears to have been at that spooky location. The terrifying event did not end there. The sound of pigeons cooing from overhead added to their uneasiness as they continued their search. A masculine voice shouting out to them heightened their terror, and the group fled the building, unsettled by the strange happenings. However, their exit was met by the anger of an enraged security guard who challenged them for trespassing. While waiting for the cops, the group inquired about the disquieting presence of several pigeons on the premises. The guard's response was scary and unexpected. He stated it was due to spirits haunting the location. Number 1. Wildest theme park. Just like the hordes of Americans who are obsessed with anime and martial arts films, there are Japanese people who have developed a particular infatuation with the Wild West and cowboys. The Japanese Wild West village was born from this unexpected love affair between Japan and the American frontier. Back in the 1970s, a bold initiative tried to transfer the spirit of the Wild West to the land of the rising sun by constructing a one-of-a-kind amusement park, the Wild West Village. When it first opened, it was a lovely getaway into the world of cowboys and untamed nature. Visitors might participate in basic yet fascinating cowboy activities like horseback riding, learning the art of lassoing, and even fishing. The park's popularity grew over time, and it eventually evolved into a full-fledged theme park with a wealth of activities that brought guests back to the renowned Wild West era. However, as the mid-2000s approached, the once thriving park began to suffer from a slow loss in popularity. The Japanese public's desire to live out their Wild West dreams declined, and ticket sales dropped. In a desperate attempt to turn around the park's fortunes, management took the difficult choice to reduce ticket costs, but this was inadequate to spark public enthusiasm. Unfortunately, the Wild West Village became more empty and forgotten, a far cry from its heyday. The Wild West Village now exists as a ghostly relic of its former self, a barren and abandoned relic of a bygone period. Its once bustling streets have been empty of cowboys and laughing for over 15 years. Curiosity drove urban explorer Micah Moore to explore and photograph this abandoned frontier. Even this exploring excursion was fraught with danger, as he had to cross the perilous Canyon Road Bridge to reach the creepy area. Moore persisted, and what he uncovered was an intriguing mashup of authentic Western features. The Wild West Village has obvious traces of its glory, with saloons, churches, and even sheriff's offices. Which of these discoveries amazed you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.